So recently I made a video on Transformers 1 that kinda blew up. The premise was how the birth of Optimus Prime and Megatron was the best scene in the film, breaking down the visual storytelling and how it aided to the messages of the film, hammering home how great the characterization was. But out of the hundreds of comments, one idea seemed to dominate the discussion. Megatron was right. My response to this is, no, he really wasn't. Many claim that Megatron was justified in trying to kill Sentinel, justified in trying to establish a new order, and Optimus was in the wrong for banishing him, claiming that he had no moral ground to do so given his actions through the film. Here's the thing though, that is nowhere near accurate. This film establishes that Orion Pax and D-16, the original versions of Optimus Prime and Megatron, both came from the same place. They were both miners, but Orion had bigger dreams of showing the world that he was more than meets the eye, while D-16 was more than content with staying in his lane instead of being exceptional. As soon as they both got a taste of recognition of their uniqueness from Sentinel Prime, they went on a journey to find the matrix of leadership once they recovered the coordinates of where the primes fell to the quintessons. Orion, of course, was more than happy to get involved, but had to manipulate D-16 to get him to agree, bringing up how Sentinel would see them both as heroes. Once they found Alpha Trion and learned the truth of Sentinel Prime's betrayal and the lie they've been living, D-16 blamed it all on Orion. Instead of recognizing that they now have an obligation to help like he did before, his first and only thought was how this impacted his life. Of course, there's nothing wrong with him being worried for his future, but we have to recognize the difference between how Orion saw things versus D-16.
Don't you want to stop him? No, I want to kill him!
This is the moment their friendship became doomed. D-16 saw his best friend as the root cause of the issues in his life, and to be fair, he wasn't totally inaccurate. But as I'll discuss later, Orion's arc through this film is to become better than he was before, going from selfish to selfless. But from this point forward, D-16 somewhat resented Orion, and it's perfectly showcased when he took charge of the group on their way back to Iacon. Immediately we see his darker side show.
I got it.
When he said, "I've got it," many thought this was an abrupt change, but in reality, it wasn't a change. Listen to his laugh in this scene.
Yes!
It's not the laugh of somebody who is doing all too well. It's pained and exhausted. His previous interaction with Orion was filled with rage for learning his life was a lie, blaming his best friend for everything, and he finally got a taste of power for himself. Finally, his destiny wasn't in the hands of others, so he insisted to Orion that he was going to take care of things going forward, and showed a bit of resentment against him. But the key difference between the two of them was how they viewed the situation. Orion, while a bit full of himself through the course of the film, was still thinking of how he could stop Sentinel and make a better world. D-16 instead wanted to kill Sentinel, make him pay for how he personally impacted D's life. This alone should set off all the alarm bells in people's heads that D-16 isn't fully mentally stable. He even reveals his ultimate plan without realizing it. He openly admits that he'll never trust a leader again.
I trusted Sentinel with everything. I will never trust a so-called leader ever again.
But this raises the question, how can he help to install a new order for the planet without trusting a new leader to do the job well? The answer is obvious. He wants to be the leader himself. He got a taste of power, resents the system he used to blindly follow, and can't trust anybody but himself. This is further showcased with his interactions with Starscream and the High Guard. After learning they pretty much do small attack runs against Sentinel instead of leading a full revolution, D-16 immediately did what he could to overthrow Starscream and give himself a personal army. His one and only goal was to make Sentinel pay, but as I explained before, this isn't simply a desire for justice, and right after D-16 rallied the High Guard behind him, Orion saw a very clear transition within him. This is an embodiment of who D always could have become with the right push. This is someone who got a taste of power and had no shame. D had no reason to attempt to kill Starscream after he already lost the fight, and had Orion not stepped in, he absolutely would have needlessly killed someone. Again, this should have set off alarm bells by now. Of course, his interaction was cut short after an ambush by Arachnid, but the next few scenes also showcase his hatred and violence. After he and B-127 were captured, D-16 disregarded that Sentinel could have killed him right then and there, all because he was too filled with hate to consider that Orion, someone who promised to always have his back, could return to save him. Once again harkening back to never trusting a leader again. Of course, Orion would never give up on his best friend, so he rallied the High Guard to save everyone, and paid a visit to the miners to ask for help as well. This is another one of my favorite scenes, as it shows the beginning of the humility we've all come to know Optimus Prime for. He took this opportunity to apologize for his mistakes, reflecting on his previous inability to consider the desires of others, recognizing that everyone deserves a chance, and everyone deserves to have their voice heard. While this is happening, D16 was being tortured by Sentinel after claiming he wasn't scared of the fake Prime. I've seen some criticisms of this scene for portraying D as not being afraid for his life because he claimed he had nothing to live for, while showing later that he wanted to kill Sentinel for taking everything from him, but those aren't mutually exclusive concepts. This is a character's entire view of the world has become, nothing matters, I need this guy dead, and both of those elements of his character can fit under this umbrella. All the antics ensue, D16 has Sentinel pinned down and crawling away, and Orion stepped in to prevent D from becoming a monster. I already covered this scene in detail, but I need to make something abundantly clear. Orion was right here. He was preventing his friend from succumbing to his darkest thoughts, something he witnessed firsthand earlier. With the context established thus far, the writers have made it clear why Orion stopped D16 from killing Sentinel, and gave proper justification for Orion to jump in the way, all culminating in D finally snapping. Another odd criticism I've seen against D's character arc was how abrupt he was with killing Orion, saying he shouldn't have shot his friend. Now, I'm no Sherlock Holmes, but I'm pretty sure he didn't intend on shooting Orion. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's made pretty clear that Orion jumped in the way while D was firing his cannon. As for why D let go of Orion, letting him fall to his death? Because D resented Orion for the longest time. As I said in my previous video, Orion got D into this whole mess, assumed he was always right, and never considered what D wanted. From D's perspective, this is a perfectly logical course of action. Stop protecting someone who doesn't care about him back. And yada yada, we have the best scene in the whole franchise. Yada yada, Josh Cooley is forgiven for Toy Story 4. Yada yada, we better get a sequel. Fucking hell, Hasbro. And Orion is reborn as Optimus, and D16 proclaimed himself Megatron. But one important thing needs to be discussed. Megatron wasn't satisfied with killing Sentinel, as Orion once predicted. He wanted to kill everyone who followed Sentinel, which would have probably included the miners he once worked alongside, who also never had a choice, making him a hypocrite. Megatron was going to kill Alita and B if Optimus hadn't arrived just in time. So objectively speaking, Megatron wasn't justified. He was consumed by his hatred to the point of no return, flat out wanting to rule Cybertron with an iron fist, killing anyone who disagreed with him. And one final criticism against this film that I think is wildly misguided was the idea that Optimus was hypocritical and condescending when banishing Megatron and the High Guard. Remember, Megatron wanted to kill everyone who didn't agree with him, while Orion only killed some mindless drones in self-defense. Orion wanted to defeat Sentinel by exposing the truth, not by slaughtering him. So when the newly christened Prime told Megatron to leave, this wasn't hypocritical. This is a new man accounting for his mistakes. Megatron was a monster of his own making, and now Primus had given Optimus a new chance at life after sacrificing his life to save his friend. He now had to banish his worst enemy. Look, I get that Megatron is excellently written in this film, I won't deny that. This is easily the most fleshed out version of his character, with the most logical justification for his turn to evil instead of his usual jealous tendencies. He is genuinely done wrong by the system, Sentinel being a monster in his own right, but Megatron wasn't a hero simply because Sentinel was a villain. That's the whole point of this movie. Just because two factions are fighting against each other doesn't mean one is good and the other is evil. There are nuances to these things. Sometimes a villain once wanted the best for himself and the people he cared for, but sometimes they're just evil because they felt like it. Anyways, I've said my piece. Good night, gamers.